probably need to spend some time with the applicant evaluating their needs against our needs and where the playground should go and make sure it meets everybody's expectations. I think there's a lot of opportunity here to do something great in the park, and I don't think it's ripe this evening to make a decision, but I think, again, it's qualified and ready to move forward, but it just needs a little more conversation on our part regarding where that playground should go and the scope and scale of the playground. The other application that may or may not be ripe this evening, in staff's opinion, is the Friends of Badger Mountain Trail proposal. The reason I bring this up is that we heard a really good presentation from Mr. Comstock at our last workshop. Also had a presentation from Mr. Terrell, our park master planner, who will also present this evening. And I believe that the two ideas are lining up, but without the master plan being finalized and complete, our current master plan doesn't show quite the need that's demonstrated as what's in the Friends of Badger Mountain application. So there's a bit of a timing issue, in my opinion, and I think we want to hear more from the applicant and have some conversation afterwards. But I think it just needs a little bit more work to make sure that the council is on board and everybody's on board with the risk and responsibility that comes along with accepting large donations of land, and make sure everybody's on the same page on this. But as I said, I think the master plan looks like it's headed that way, but it's just not quite adopted yet. So it's a timing issue in staff's mind. And then the horse park proposal looks very straightforward and ready to go to me, and I think that one, in staff's opinion, is ripe to be voted on this evening. Great, and I'll be around for questions afterwards. I'm sure there'll be a lot.
Okay, sounds good. I'll go ahead and review. So our order of presentations that will follow this evening is we'll begin with the Richland Horse Park presentation. From there we'll have Friends of Badger Mountain, and then we'll end with Sagebrush Montessori. So I don't know if it's Mr. or Mrs. Bennett who's going to come present, but we'll go ahead and begin with Richland Horse Park. Welcome.
Thank you. And hopefully you can see on the screen I have a PowerPoint presentation. Mm-hmm. My name is Mary Bennett, and my address is 1730 Hoxie Avenue. I am here tonight representing the Richland Horse Park Focus Group to talk about our proposal to begin implementing the W.E. Johnson Master Plan. I know your time is limited, so I will try to go through the slides quickly. Basically, we are looking to clean up and identify the space at W.E. Johnson and make some simple improvements during the first year. The cost of these improvements is estimated at $10,200, of which the focus group has pledged contributions of $5,545. We are asking the city to contribute $4,655 through the Park Partnership Program. And there's a list of everything we're going to do here on this slide and also in your application. Members of the focus group are local equestrians. We have both a core working group and a broader input distribution group that communicates back to their respective groups. In this way, we are able to reach hundreds of local equestrians, bow hunters, gardeners, and other outdoor enthusiasts. Equestrians with close proximity to the horse park will probably benefit the most from our work. Richland Riders, Tri-Cities Equestrian Center, and Stredwick Stables all have direct access to the horse park. There are also many local equestrians that live within just a couple of miles of the area. But our proposal is also designed to benefit folks that would come from farther away by providing a place to meet before a ride or training practice and a place to rest and socialize afterwards. Our most important goal is to make the space safe. As you can see, over time, the site had fallen into disrepair, and the improvements that were in place deteriorated. Just this year, equestrian volunteers cleared the site of the broken down corrals and strewn about wire fencing. We still have a little bit of work to do to make sure we get the last of the smaller hazards cleared, but the progress has been very remarkable. Early conversations about the horse park centered around a need to not only rejuvenate, but identify the space. Here is a concept sketch for the etched monument sign that we believe will give us this much-needed identity. It is similar to the many monument signs you see at other parks throughout the city of Richland. Here are a few pictures that show what a rest area for horses and riders would look like and how it would be used. And you may recall that I previously had shown the Park Commission a concept sketch of the area we want to create. We also want to reserve some space for education and training. On the right is a horse on a high line, and on the left you see one on a pedestal. In the past, the horse park was used for eventing, but our cross-country jumps are really showing their age. The picture on the left shows a jump at Washington Horse Park. On the right, you can see how old the jumps are at Richland Horse Park. We have some signs included in our proposal to help inform users. We believe thoughtfully chosen and well-placed signs are very important. Our schedule of work shows the steps we will take to complete the project. Our timeline is generous because we didn't know how long the approval process might take. My husband Bill and I will be responsible for coordinating the installation and maintenance for the project, but it will be a larger group of volunteers who really are the ones doing the work. The focus group is currently working to establish a more formalized group for continued maintenance and oversight. We would like that group to include diverse representation. While many have contributed financial support, there are many others who are not listed on this slide who have contributed both their time and energy to this project, and that is equally, if not more, important. I know you have previously received a map that shows the surrounding equestrian community. I just want to underscore that horses and riders have continued to use this space over many decades because the location is so key to horse facilities and equestrian trails. I would now like to turn the presentation over to Carl Baker for just a quick peek at what you might expect for year 2 and moving forward. Thank you. And I'll stay here if you have questions also.
Okay, thank you.
And yeah, I'm Carl Baker, not Bill Bennett, and I live in West Richland at 4501 West Latin Court. So we just have a couple more slides here to talk to what we'd like to propose in 2020. It would be nice to have a little bit more of a developed parking and staging area there at the end of at the trailhead for the park, and so we've got a roughed out sketch here that we've put together. What we've proposed here, we understand, is probably not likely to pass muster as far as development within the floodplain and that sort of thing. It's sort of our ask for what we'd like to do. And that'll be constrained, we're confident, by the development restrictions and so on in the floodplain. And so our intent is to work with city staff and other parties over the course of the winter to kind of make these plans as they need to be in order to actually be implemented. And then this would be a project that would come for 2020. And then we have other ideas for future years that we're still kind of working out which ones we'd like to develop next. So I think
And we're available if you have any questions.
Okay. Commissioners, any questions? Vice Chair.
I've got a couple of questions, especially related to something Mr. Baker just said. I didn't see anything in the proposal, unless I misread it, that referred to this staging area. So is that sort of concept but not really part of the proposal tonight?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. The other question, I noticed that you were talking about having some landscaping done. Since there's no irrigation for there, I presume you're looking at using dryland plants, but are you using native plants, or what are you thinking of?
We actually are planning on planting 2 larger trees, and I have a short list that I'm ready to review with the city at any time. I'm also a member of the Garden Genie's Garden Club, and we had our second visit to the site today with recommendations for the best trees that will work there. There are currently black locust trees that have naturalized there. And so one of the trees that's on the short list would be a honey locust that does not seed. So we're confident that we have 4 choices that the city could choose from that would work for us for shade for the picnic area, and we would leave that to the city's choice.
One of the reasons I was asking this question is I noticed that on your drawing that had you
Yes.
had 2 red yucca on either side of it, and just out of curiosity, I looked that up, and it said that in fact it's poisonous to animals, especially large animals who grazed on it. And I thought perhaps not the best thing to be putting at the horse, I know you don't tend to have the horses grazing on, but I was concerned about what that meant in terms of what kinds of plants you were looking at there when this one raised flags to me.
Yeah, that plant we are considering for possible use there. It could be considered harmful in a large quantity to a large animal. They would have to ingest a very large amount for there to be an impact. However, you also, a horse wouldn't typically graze that plant.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, commissioners? Commissioner Bilt.
Do you intend to make a follow-up proposal for next year for the Phase 2 activities you alluded to?
Yes, we do. And that would include, our primary goal for the next year would be for the staging area for parking, because with horses it's really staging, not more so than parking.
Okay, thank you.
Vice Chair.
One other question I want to ask, and I didn't notice anything in your proposal covering insurance, but I believe that the city requires groups who do work in the parks to have insurance. Is that still a requirement? And so are you prepared to meet that requirement?
I would defer that question to Mr. Sichel. We had met with the city, and we were told that we were not required to have insurance for the volunteer work that we did. If that is changed, then we would need to be so advised.
But insurance is required for the park partnership program, not for the volunteer work we did.
Okay, thank you.
I was just curious about the, you gave a picture of current jumps that are present. Where are those jumps located?
They're on the north end of the 40-acre space along the trail portion. So we have, primarily they are there. We have a circle with a number of jumps that are actively being used, and then alongside the trail we have several straw bales, and those are used for jump. There are some older jumps that are not being currently used that are from the old eventing days, and those are on the west portion of the site.
Questions, commissioners, or comments? Commissioner White.
I have a comment for the commission. I recall several months ago, before this came to us, we were tasked with identifying potential land for youth sports or multi-use fields. And I recall us discussing this area, and I just wanted to see if that was still on the table or if we had moved on from that. Do you have any recollection of that?
I recall the conversation.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you. I do recall the conversation from a few years ago. I will say that, as you're aware, that the city is partnering with the other cities in the area with the sports tourism consultant that's looking at sports tourism throughout the area. We did not identify this site to that consultant for use for youth athletics, but we did tour the consultant to this site to look at it for equestrian tourism.
Okay, that clarifies my concern. I just want to make sure we weren't trying to look at the same area for two different uses. Thank you.
Okay, I'm seeing no further questions at this time, but we'll go ahead and discuss and put forward our motion.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, so I would open it up to commissioners if you have any comments regarding the proposed park partnership with the Richland Horse Park. Commissioner Bilt.
I'm just a question of procedure. Are we going to listen to the remaining proposals before we make motions towards acceptance?
I think that's a good process. Thank you. Okay, so with that, we'll go ahead and move to the Badger Mountain presentation. Mr. Comstock.
Hello, I'm David Comstock. I'm on the board of directors for Friends of Badger Mountain. So I live at 1301 Brookwood Avenue in Richland. And I'll pull up our presentation here. So I also have with me tonight Friends of Badger's new president, Mark Spinner, is here this evening, as well as our new vice president, David Beach, and another one of our board members is here this evening, Bob Bass as well. So just kind of the big picture scope here before I get into the details of the specific application is trying to create a new City of Richland Park that would have an interconnecting trail system from the existing Badger Mountain Centennial Preserve, the Benton County Preserve, all the way to the high point of the City of Richland, which is up by the water tanks that you can see in the bottom right-hand corner in this box. As you know, the City of Richland already has 32 acres of parkland wrapping the end of the ridge. So the idea would be to connect through the saddle to reach the high point water tanks. If we can get there, we already have a Friends of Badger Mountain parcel that would take us down the south slope, interconnecting to an existing public trail that's within the city's park system for wrapping around Falcon Crest to that existing parkland at the end of the ridge. So we'd have an interconnected trail system all the way from Badger Mountain out to Leslie, which then connects to Amon Basin and Clayville Park. So that's the intent. Badger Mountain Centennial Preserve, which is basically top left of the screen through the triangular parcels all the way down to Queens Gate. Queens Gate's been paved through the saddle in this area. There's a rural section road with an existing pedestrian path that this trail would tie into. So that's kind of the scope of this project, looking at construction and design of that. So real quick from the city manager's proposal budget for 2019, there are a couple key items associated with trails from the Tri-City Herald article earlier this year. These were the top priorities for the city of Richland's capital improvement projects. One is the steps that are going on right now being built in Trailhead Park. The second priority was this additional missing portion of our connected ridge trail system to develop this connection trail to the Little Badger. So these are some of the top priorities for the city of Richland going forward. So in addition to that, this is out of the current master plan that's out for public comment right now. So this figure 3.07 as part of our Richland Parks and Natural Open Space. So that blue asterisks indicate future park purchases. So you can see Badger Mountain Centennial Preserve. I don't know if I can adjust my cursor on this, but obviously the big green blob is the Badger Mountain Centennial Preserve. Just off the right-hand side of that is the first one of these asterisks. That's this parcel that we're looking at. So once this trail is developed with some funding from the application, Friends of Badger will be looking at donating that land to the City of Richland to help create this parks partnership and this trail corridor. And there's 4 other asterisks that represent the rest of the land that's needed to be purchased to finish this ridge trail connection across Little Badger. So this is a different figure from the City Marks master plan. This is 3.08. So this looks at soft trails. So again, you can see all the trails in Badger Mountain Preserve, and then off the eastern boundary, which is the start of the city, I put a 1 and a colon. That's my addition to the map. That first one is this soft trail or gravel surface trail, just like we have up on Badger Mountain. That's what this application project would construct, that soft trail system all the way from the east boundary of the existing Benton County Badger Mountain Preserve all the way to Queens Gate. That'll tie into that existing paved pedestrian path. So a little bit of look at the land before I go on to the details of the application. This is a photograph looking at the 16.5 acre parcel that Friends has. We've added about another half an acre, so the total land area is about 17 acres in this property connecting Badger to Queensgate. So it's nice sage habitat with spectacular views overlooking the city. Similar to the sagebrush trail that's on Badger Mountain. It'll be a similar experience all the way down to Queensgate. This is a picture from Queensgate looking up at the slope. The contractor has already cut in the start of this trail, but it's a very sandy slope, so part of the application is to hire a professional engineering company to do a cross-sectional design and come up with a trail design. That's part of what the application is asking funding for. Once we have that design, Friends of Badger Mountain will hire a professional contractor. That'll be some type of retaining wall structure. Try to use native materials similar to what you see on the right-hand side of this photo. You can see kind of a basalt retaining wall that they built along Queensgate. We'll try to use native materials to blend in with the existing landscape. So real quickly on the details of the proposal. Friends of Badger Mountain will lead a volunteer effort to build the portions of the trail that are up on top of the slope to connect most of the length. So that's about 2,000 feet. That's similar to the trail construction that we've been doing for Benton County within the Badger Mountain Preserve and the Candy Mountain Preserve. That looks at the volunteer hours in the top section, looks at material costs in section 2 here. Would split the material costs with the city through this application process. The professional services, as I mentioned, would be designed for coming up with an appropriate trail cross section to stabilize that sandier slope. And split that design cost with the City of Richland through this application process. And then once we have the design, Friends will take that out and go through a competitive bidding process and hire a professional contractor that does that type of installation work, and will pay for all of the construction costs to build the trail up that sandy slope. And then as it reaches the top of the slope, we'll continue and do the last 2,000 or so feet up into the Badger Mountain Centennial Preserve and tie in with the existing trail system within the Benton County Preserve. So that looks at the cost. This kind of gives an overall scope, kind of what I just described with the engineering study. That'll happen this summer, and then we'll competitively bid that so we can build this trail section this fall. And we hope to have the project completed by Thanksgiving so we can open this trail section and have another connection to the eastern boundary of the Centennial Preserve completed in the November timeframe of this year.
Any questions, commissioners? Commissioner Richards.
How much property will the Friends of Badger donate to the city related to this application?
So the land that this trail system will be on is basically about 17 acres. So we've had a professional appraisal done on the 16.5 acre parcel. It's beautiful view lots on top of the ridge. It appraised at just over $900,000 in value. And then just here at the end of December 2019, we got an additional about 1,000 feet donated that made the final connection down to Queensgate. So that's another about half acre. So the total land area is about 17 acres.
That's all related to this?
Yes, that's what this trail corridor will be on. So I'll go back real quick. So that's this top left section from the existing Badger Mountain Preserve, this kind of triangular wedge that comes down to Queensgate. Total area is about 17 acres. And we're trying to have that same type of experience in our natural environment, the sagebrush habitat that we have on Badger Mountain. And you'll have that nice sage with beautiful views overlooking the Columbia River as you go down this.
Second question.
Yep.
Does the land purchase, I mean, right now this is kind of a trail to a known unknown as to whether we've acquired the land, which we have not yet?
So this portion is Friends of Badger Mountain land right now, and as we complete the overall project, it'll be donated to the city to complete this overall trail corridor. So this is the collection of parcels that create a continuous trail corridor.
Yeah, I apologize.
Okay.
Maybe I'm not describing it. It looks like the trail goes to a certain point where there's property that we do not own at this point in time, according to the asterisks that were presented on another slide.
Yep. So I can describe the overall project that's beyond the scope of this application a little bit more. Is that?
I guess my main concern is we're building a trail that goes nowhere at this point in time.
Disagree. So we are building a trail that will connect Queensgate, one of the north-south main arterial streets in the city of Richland. It will be, as soon as it connects through to Keene, equivalent to Leslie. We are connecting that major public street in the city of Richland to the most popular park in the Badger Mountain, or in the Benton County, excuse me. So Badger Mountain is a huge destination, and access to the eastern boundary is something that we need to work on. We have Trailhead Park, City of Richland's park, has access from the north. Benton County has an access from Dallas Road, another major north-south arterial. This will provide direct access from Queensgate, a major arterial street, to the eastern boundary of the Badger Mountain Preserve. So it's an important access point to the preserve and a key part of the overall Ridge Trail system.
Okay, I guess what I'm failing to understand is, according to the asterisks on the slide that you presented, we do not own that land at this point in time.
The city of Richland does not own that land at this time. That is correct.
So the trail does not bridge across there.
It is on your Parks Master Plan for 2019 to 25 to acquire this land for future city parks.
So
that's what this say. Asterisk indicates future parks purchases.
So
and in this case,
sorry. My perspective, or at least the way I'm understanding it, is the trail goes up to where we don't own but propose to own property at some other date.
Yes. So
This current land that's being discussed is Friends of Badger
correct.
Mountain.
So
it already belongs to Friends of Badger. So this particular piece that we're talking about is Friends of Badger property.
I agree.
Yes.
I understand that. But it goes to a certain point where we're looking for connectivity to the trail on the other side.
It exits at Queensgate, so onto Queensgate Drive.
Yes, so the scope of this application is from Queensgate to the west to the Badger Mountain Preserve. So we'll tie into the existing public street and paved pedestrian path on Queensgate that is there today. We'll extend from that existing pedestrian path all the way to the Badger Mountain Preserve and tie into the existing trails in the Badger Mountain Preserve. That's the scope of the project and the application submitted to the Parks Commission.
Okay.
Okay. Vice Chair Dorn.
So if I understand it correctly, on the same conversation, what you're proposing now, even if nothing else got purchased, would give people who live in that part of Queensgate
Right.
access to go up to Badger Mountain without having to go to Trailhead Park.
Correct.
They could. Is this intended to be a trail that bicyclists can use? What about horses?
Yes.
Okay,
So
so
we intend it to be a multi-use trail, just like on Badger Mountain.
okay, so except for the Canyon Trail, which
Yes.
the only one that doesn't let horses right now, right?
That's correct. And because of the steps that
Sure.
the city is improving, that's the only reason that's limited to hiker only. So this would be a multi-use trail like all the other trails on Badger.
But if everything falls into place, then future trail extensions would go up further and over up to Falcon Crest and down and into
Yep.
Amon. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Commissioner White.
So kind of just building on the Commissioner Richards and Commissioner Doran's comments, I think for me, I don't want to speak for them. I see that there are 79 acres that are needed to be purchased still.
Well, that's the total project of the overall trail system that's in red here. So everything that's outlined in red is the 79 acres, which we envision to be a future City of Richland preserve with a similar trail experience to the Badger Mountain that you have right now, and provide public access to the highest point in the City of Richland, the summit of Little Badger. So that's the grand vision.
If I recall correctly, the last time that this was spoken of in front of us, it was a all or nothing kind of purchase on at least two of those lots.
So I can talk a little bit more. So right underneath the checkbox is 3 purchase lots out of Westcliff Heights that we want to purchase for the access onto the ridgetop. Below and to the north of that, the steep north face of Badger, the City of Richland already has under contract with the developer 13.5 acres. That is that whole continuous strip where the lower dash line is. So that's already been secured by the City of Richland for this trail corridor. So the lots are under option agreement. Friends of Badger has put in over $200,000 into that. The City of Richland has in their capital improvement budget assigned $225,000 for this fiscal year for the purchase of an additional lot. And we have received donations from a Hanford contractor for the purchase of the last lot. So that the land, we have all the financial money that we need for the purchase of all the land in the lower third of the trail system. So the focus will now be on the purchase of the final 4 purchases, or the parcels in the saddle.
The ones in the center?
Yep, in the center.
Okay.
So for the focus of tonight, so we can stay on our project that we're looking at, let's focus on those 17 acres.
Okay.
There is the extended project for future review, but for now, let's just look at this particular section of the 17 acres option.
So then I guess narrowing the scope a little bit, do you have a time frame that the engineering company has given you to look at the slope?
Yes, I believe we'll have some design back in the August time frame. So the next couple months we'll have a design completed.
Okay. And then given the parameters of the Park Partnership Program, do you have an expected date at which you could break ground to begin?
So we'll go through a competitive bidding process once the design is established, and we hope to hire a contractor in the fall. We like to do our trail construction when there's a little bit of moisture in the soil, so we do our trail maintenance in the spring and the fall.
Okay.
So it'll be our fall project.
I think they had a deadline of November, end of November-ish.
Right, before winter sets in, so we really, as soon as the ground freezes, our construction season is over. So September, October, November will be when the trails get constructed. And then basically we'll continue to provide a similar maintenance service that we do each spring and fall as we do on the Badger Mountain. We'll continue to improve and maintain this trail system as well.
Okay.
and it's a pretty incredible offer. What we do for the county is we probably put in about 1,500 to 2,000 hours a year of volunteer time and cover all the materials through different grants that we get for the trail maintenance activities. So it's a significant value.
Commissioner Bilt.
So, thank you for the excellent proposal. I am astounded, if I understand this correctly, that you are, the Friends of Badger are donating 17 acres valued at close to $1 million of land to the city of Richland. And what do you expect to get in return from the city of Richland?
Nothing. So not only that, so the proposal's for $4,500. So our trail construction budget is probably about $30,000 with the design cost to build. Plus, in the end, our intent is to donate about $1 million for this portion, but that's only a third of the trail. So we're also actively recruiting and raising funds to purchase other sections to have a similar proposal.
So your donators they understand that
yes.
your existence is based on
right.
donating to municipalities to open these lands up for
public access. So we want, just like with the Badger Mountain and the Canyon Mountain, we want a government agency to be the long-term steward. We want to preserve our iconic features of this community for generations to come. So we're 10 individuals on the board. We want the park to be maintained and preserved by a government entity that can survive for generations. That is our end.
Again, I'll just say I'm astounded. Thank you.
So.
Any further commissioner comments or questions? Commissioner Berry.
Thank you. So this is a relatively large project, and you're estimating about $35,000. And through this grant, you're eligible to request up to $5,000. Is there a specific reason that you've chosen to only ask for $4,575?
Those were two key components as we broke out in the spreadsheet here for material costs and for design costs. So I focused on costs that were easily split 50-50 between Friends and the city, and stopping there kept me under $5,000. Ultimately, it's a small amount in the total budget that we're looking at for the overall project. So when we're done with this, we'll have, like you're saying, approaching $1 million asset that will be coming to the city for this new trail system that will be available to the public.
Thank you.
Right on. Thank you.
Commissioner Bilt.
So do you have precedence for this? Have you done this in the past?
Badger Mountain, Canyon Mountain. So I was the project manager for establishing the Canyon Mountain Preserve, and then the group was formed back
with Richland?
With Benton County.
Yeah, I understand that, but do we have precedence with Richland?
For doing this work, we've done...
No, for land donation.
I don't know that we've donated land to the city of Richland. We've had past partnership grant applications. We've worked under contract to do trail construction in Trailhead Park and the current step bypass that people are using going up Badger Mountain right now.
So, Mr. Schissel, this is the aspect that you were had noted in your comments about wanting more time before moving forward, because understanding the aspects of accepting this donation. Is that what I heard you say?
Yeah, my comments were related to the timing. So Mr. Comstock is correct that our current master plan does show acquisition in this area. Our current draft master plan, not the adopted plan. Our adopted plan does not show that. So we just want to make sure that as we're going through the approval process, and it has not been approved by council yet, that everybody's on the same page that we are in land acquisition mode in this area.
Okay.
So right now we wouldn't donate the parcel until 2020 as we complete the overall project. So by that you'll have long approved your Parks Master Plan for 19 through 25. So.
Okay, further comments or questions? Commissioner White.
I'm just looking over some of the program guidelines, and I think I understand why some of us may be a little hesitant to jump right in. Just looking at number one, I understand that the intent is to donate the land. But one of the guidelines is that it's located on city-owned property, including city parks and facilities, and I don't know if it necessarily meets that criteria yet. So that's something that you could work out with staff, I'm assuming. But again, just skipping further along, the project timeline section is beyond the scope of what we are, but it's a concern based on just the timeline that we have right now, given some of the things you've discussed as far as getting the engineering process going and groundbreaking. And they're concerns that I just wanted to make sure that we all understand.
So for the application that we've submitted to the commission, the design funds will be spent this summer, and the trail construction will happen all this fall. We'll have 100% trail completion and 100% budget spent complete by the end of November of this year, 2019.
Yep. Further comments or questions? Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Comstock, for your presentation.
Thank you.
And that will bring us to our final presentation, the Sagebrush Montessori. Shuffling our papers here.
Hi, my name is Samantha May, and I'm the head of school at Sagebrush Montessori, which is a Montessori program that serves children ages 3 to 12. We currently have 102 children across 2 campuses and have a history of 22 years in the city. 6 years ago, we began leasing the property on Wright Avenue. It's at Wright and Frankfurt. It's the old firehouse. Many of you might know it as the co-op preschool. We took it on 6 years ago to become our elementary program. We started with 16 students and have grown to nearly 50 in those 6 years. We have on the city property, we have a small play structure and a large sandbox that our children have enjoyed greatly. But largely, we've spent a lot of our playtime in Frankfurt Park. And currently, Frankfurt Park has a play structure that is some distance away from our actual school property. So let me show you on a map. Currently, I don't know if it makes sense to use this, but currently the it doesn't show up on there. Okay. So the school is located on the northeast corner at 507 Wright Avenue, next to Frankfurt Park. And the play structure is down where the star is, a bit further south by the dance class on the backside. Where it is located, all of the children must leave the school property and come over to the play structure to play on it for safety reasons, for supervision reasons. So the children do choose to go a couple days a week to play on that play structure as opposed to our sand lot area on our playground. And we have been talking with the city about moving the play structure from its current location to being adjacent to the school property, kind of where the baseball diamond is. And so we had met with Mr. Pinard some time ago to talk about just relocating the structure so that it would be more accessible and have a clear line of sight for the community and for the use of our children to play on it. And when they looked at it, they discovered that the quality of the play structure had declined and that it would not survive a move. And so we began to talk about how the school community could support either a new play structure or some alternatives. And we were proposing for this grant process that the school contribute $5,000 and the city contribute $5,000 to put in a new footprint. And that would be the first stage of getting ready to install a new play structure in a location that was suitable both for our community and for the surrounding neighborhood. And so today we're just here to ask for approval, but I understand that there's a bigger issue with the life of the park that hasn't been determined. So right now, we also don't know if the city would prefer to put the play structure next to the diamond or where the diamond is. So there's some unknown parts of the life of the park that we don't know. We had considered just putting in a play structure on our school property, but because it is city property, we worried that doing that would lead to the city having two play structures to care for in the future. So we thought this would be more advantageous. The children at our school have also taken great pride in caring for the park. They have requested additional garbage bins, and they do weekly park cleanups. We have made great connections with our neighbors, and in general, really brought a lot of life to the neighborhood and have made great relationships with our neighbors. We feel like moving the play structure would serve everybody and put it in a more visible area that would be safer and lead to less graffiti and damage to the property too. So we also wanted to keep in mind that we have this very large sand pit that serves our entire neighborhood and our students. It's difficult to explain to anybody without children how much they love sand, so maybe you have some experience with that. We use our sand to teach about waterways and work of the water and mountains. Then we go out into the park to explore leaves, varieties of leaves, and do nature hunts. So those two pieces really work well together, and we felt that it would be very disappointing for our children to get rid of that sand. So our proposal is to begin the work of putting in a footprint in an area of the city's choosing that hopefully serves both communities' needs, and that we would support the process through volunteers and also fundraising. We've already got commitment from our school board to match funds to install that footprint. And we also have community volunteers that would help with excavation and any manual labor that could be supported through volunteers, and then, of course, hiring out as needed. So that's all I have this evening. Any questions?
Commissioner Bilt.
Yeah, I have several questions.
Certainly.
First of all, just to clarify your costs, well, is your intent to make a second proposal next year for completion of the project?
Yes, so we were imagining a two-phase project where we would get the footprint moving this year and use the grant money this fall. And then next year we would be eligible to apply again, and we would apply for the grant to begin the purchase of a new play structure.
And do you have any preliminary estimate as to what the cost of that
play structure? Play structures do range. We have a very large range of costs, so that's looking probably more in the $25,000 to $30,000 range, depending on what the city decides is the most suitable type of equipment for that area. It also depends on if the goal is to have a more natural playscape versus a traditional play structure. The city has done a lot of different projects, and part of our work would be to work together to find out what play structure serves the community best.
So I missed the location of your current sand pit.
So if you...
I saw where the school is located on the map.
And you see next to the school there's a very large tree, of shading. It's immediately under that large tree, maple tree shades the sandbox.
It's separate from the park, but it's part of the leased City of Richland
It is
land
part of the lease. And we lease from Parks and Rec, or the firehouse building. And the sand pit, while large for digging sand, is not really large enough for an additional play structure. It would not be a very big structure that could go there. And all the sand would need to be removed for current safety standards. So it would be cotton bark or rubber chips.
So you're proposing that the playground would be at where the current sand?
I'm proposing it would be where the baseball diamond is, or slightly further west of that.
So have you examined that space between the baseball diamond and that roadway there? Is there room for the footprint in that area?
It depends on what the long-term plan for the baseball diamond is. I think that the baseball diamond, in its current place, would not allow for a large enough structure. There are a few other like mechanical, there's an electrical box of some kind and some power lines that would prevent it from being just between the sandbox and the diamond. So it would need to be a little further into the park or where that diamond is.
So you're telling us that we really need to make a determination as to whether or not we value relocation and upgrading of the playground equipment versus that of the baseball diamond.
Sure, and when I met with Mr. Pinard, he suggested that as a safer location and a more practical location for the baseball diamond would actually be where the current play structure is, back in that corner.
Okay.
So not eliminating it, because it is used, although it's not one of the more heavily used baseball diamonds in town.
So it would be congruent in concert with relocating the baseball diamond.
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's why we see this as maybe a multi-phase project, too. It's a lot of changes.
Okay.
Commissioner White.
You covered a good portion of the questions that I was going to ask. They were in regards to the baseball diamond. From this picture, it doesn't look like it's been used for quite some time. But just from being in that vicinity and seeing it, I'm curious as to how well maintained the structure is. I know that some of our parks, especially ones like Frankfurt Park, are relatively old, and it may. For the life of me, it's probably been 15 years since I was there, but
it's not the nicest play structure in town. There are a lot nicer ones. It's has swings, which our children adore, and it does have a nice slide, but it is weathered, and it's not as large as many of the newer play structures are that have a lot more physical opportunities for children. So we have children who are getting big. They're ages 6 to 12, and they need some more challenging equipment to work with. And this is fairly limited to monkey bars, a slide, and some swings. And just the current state of it is just in sort of ill repair, and it is heavily graffitied. And
one of my concerns, though, is, and I've addressed it, and it's been one of our park goals, is even the most well thought out structure often can lead to. So I'm looking at this here and wondering, are the location that it is looks like it does get a good amount of sun shade. It's not all in the sun, and the proposed location might be a little opposite of that in all sun. And I know that a lot of our play structures now, we've moved from metal to plastic, but that plastic still is very hot during some of our summers.
Yeah, that one is all plastic other than the monkey bars.
Right. Would there be any consideration for moving to an area that's maybe a little more west, where you do have more shade, or perhaps adding additional shade?
I think that would be part of the discussion that would happen with staff in terms of having to look at the plan of where it would be located. I don't think.
I mean, I would recommend that it would just be further north, and how far west it went, I think, is definitely up for consideration. There is a lot more shade, but it still feels quite open to the west, and we would still have line of sight for our children so that children could play in both locations without having to uproot everybody. And I think it would still provide a good line of sight for the community members. I think that there's a safety issue when you're having to remove yourself all the way to the back corner of the park like that. I don't think it draws in as much as the polka as it could. If it's further north, I think in any of those locations it'll have more of an attractive draw to the community.
Okay, I guess another one of my concerns is that the potential for losing that baseball field. It's in a community park, and it's a sports field that we know we need. I don't know what the use of it is offhand, but I'm concerned about identifying the right space for it and relocation of that play structure.
Yeah, I would definitely want to take that into consideration. We have a lot of families who use our sands while their small children play there while older kids have baseball practice, so I know that it gets used. Whether or not it's serving as many people as it could in its current state, I'm not sure. I feel like looking at the park and creating a natural play space, looking at different styles further west is, of course, an option. But bringing the play structure north to me would just make it more convenient for a lot of reasons.
Okay. Vice Chair Dorn.
Well, I think some of my comments have been addressed. I assume this is a practice field, not is how it's primarily used, isn't it?
Correct.
Okay. And, it seems to me that the consideration, I can understand why the city said there are things to figure out first, because I'm not sure how we approve the building, the excavation until we know where it goes,
Right.
which means
Right.
Other changes. Does this need a master plan before we can go ahead with this, or could we? I guess I'm trying to figure out where we are on this.
And I have been to a number of meetings as far as 2.5 years back to try and get started on that work, but this is maybe a less loved park. Mm-hmm. We'd love to bring some more love to that.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
I think following the footsteps of the basketball court in McMurray Park, this would require a master plan amendment, or a master plan period. I don't think
I
there
don't
is
think it
a
has a
master plan
master
for the
plan.
park.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out. Can we accomplish that within the time frame for doing a park partnership to get anything to happen? I guess I'm trying to think of how this all gets.
I'm not sure, but
gets scheduled and scoped out.
It's early in the year, and this is a multi-year project. I think we would take a run at that. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Berry.
So in regards to the baseball field, I do believe that is included in our facility use agreement with the Richland National Little League. And I do know offhand, because when I was a participant in that Little League, we did practice at that field. And I do know that within that Little League, there is some feelings that the city hasn't done its best to maintain that specific field, which you can see it's overgrown and grassed over in the second to third base zones.
And they have done some improvements. This is an old picture. There was a new backstop installed recently.
Yeah.
But it's definitely could use more attention.
But would the Little League like to have at least a seat at the table or to be included in the discussions as to where the field that they utilize is positioned in regards to these new improvements in the field?
And they're a stakeholder at the table, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Just make sure that was included.
Commissioner Bilt.
So I thought that there was a master plan for this. I think I looked it up online, or if I recall correctly, it was like 25, 30 years old, hadn't been updated. So I was just going to say that putting a master plan together that may accommodate this, the location change that meets multiple needs, as well as meeting the Little League's needs. I think that'd be a good plan forward.
Vice Chair.
In the draft master plan, where it lists the various parks, and it lists if there's a master plan for the park, there isn't one listed for Frankfurt.
It was just a map. If that's the master plan, it was just a map.
Yeah, but there may be a map that wasn't adopted as a master plan. It doesn't. We don't show that we have one here. I don't know how we tell then. Otherwise,
Mr. Schissel.
This is a situation where you're both right. What we have, there's a series of older plans called facility plans, and they were really representations of existing conditions. So we have some 20 and 30-year-old what we call facility plans that weren't really future forward.
Okay. So there's an opportunity to create a future forward plan.
Okay, so questions specifically for Mrs. May. Are there any? Okay, Mr. White.
Has the nearby, have you heard a significant backing from the neighborhood for this?
For moving the play structure?
Yes.
We haven't reached out to the families in the area, but we've certainly made friends with our immediate neighbors about this, and they seem fully supportive of having us present and having us visible in the neighborhood. And I feel confident that they would stand by us in making the park a safer place and making it so that more people would make use of it. They seem to have found great joy in having as many children around as we bring, and we've had opportunity to go out and work with them. We invite them in for reading and deliver May Day flowers and things like that, and it's created a great community bond, and I can see this as an opportunity to bring those neighbors to the park.
Okay, I think that's all for now. Thank you very much for your presentation, and we'll go ahead and continue with our discussion. So, Commissioners, I'm looking at the time, and, that doesn't dictate everything, but I do want to consider, honing in on this conversation. We have two proposals that seem to still need some work. And obviously, we're going to have opportunity, I think. If we move forward, we can move those discussions more specifically to a workshop when we have more opportunity to get answers, I guess, to a lot of the questions that were presented this evening, and kind of keep us on track for our timing. So if the Commission's amenable to that, I would like to just focus on discussion for the Richland Horse Park and move forward with that proposal. Commissioner Bilt.
I'm not sure I entirely agree.
Okay.
I think that one of the things we could consider are, if we're supportive of this, I think that the applicants have deserve to know whether or not we're supportive or not. Mm-hmm. And just tabling the discussion wouldn't give them much in the know of where we're headed. Can we consider conditional approval by motion if we are so inclined, so that applicants can move forward and resolve the issues that would be identified in the conditions of a motion?
Yes, we could, obviously, but
how does the rest of the commission feel about that approach?
Commissioner White.
I would disagree. I do feel that two of them are, one of them I'm concerned that it doesn't necessarily meet even the first program guideline. That, as I stated in those questions, I think that is something that the staff can address. It's beyond our scope, but that is my concern with that one. So I don't necessarily, whether or not I would support it, I don't think it's ready for that consideration. Program guideline number 1.
To be eligible, projects must be located on city-owned property?
Yes. It is not city-owned property yet.
You're talking about
Friends of Badger.
One of the proposals, okay.
And the other one, I'm concerned that we haven't heard from a significant stakeholder as to whether or not they would support something of that nature.
The stakeholder being?
The youth baseball.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to take Vice Chair Doran's comments.
I'm sort of torn. On the one hand, I think that given that the city reviewed them and felt they were eligible, and that approval for the Sagebrush Montessori, even though I like the idea of the partnership and I like the idea of upgrade, whatever we can do to upgrade the park and the facilities there, but because of the baseball diamond and some of the it seems to me a lot has to happen before we can do this. It's not clear to me how we can go forward at this point on that particular one. So I would just as soon have the discussion on the one we can deal with and then take care of that one, and then come to the others after we have some more information. With luck, maybe we could have some of that be closer to it next month. We'll see.
Okay, so having heard from the commission, I would say let's start with not making any motions yet, but let's have the discussion regarding the Richland Horse Park. Then if we would like to have a little bit further discussion on the other two, and then we can make our motions. So let's go ahead and look at the Richland Horse Park for discussion. So if any commissioners would like to provide feedback or comments, this would be a great time. Commissioner Andrews.
Yeah, I'd just like to comment that after reviewing the budget, we're really the partnership, Richland, is essentially paying for the sign. And I think that's great. There's a lot of work that's already been done and it continues to be done. And they've taken on the bulk of the financial responsibility and the labor, and they really want a picnic table and a sign from the city, and I think that's very fair.
Okay. Commissioner White?
I would agree with Commissioner Andrews. I believe it's very fair, and it's well put together. It's very complete. I've read it over from the first time it was brought to us as a concern of theirs, and I feel that I am ready to move forward on it.
Vice Chair.
I'm really quite happy to see the horse community coming forward on this and with those kind of work. The W.E. Johnson Master Plan has indicated that area as an equestrian area, and I've always described master plans as sort of aspirational fiction, what we would like to have happen if we had lots of money. And all too often, let's acknowledge that our master plans happen because a group says, okay, we'll find a way of making it happen. It is not necessarily done with city money. And here we have the group recognizing that if you want this area to be stay on the master plan as equestrian and to be available to it, someone has to step forward and help out. And I appreciate that that's the approach they're taking. And I'd like very much to see us able to support it. I can imagine that as development happens in this area more and more, people with horses must find it harder and harder to have a place to go. And it's one of the few places in the city near all the stables where people can exercise their horses.
I guess to kind of continue on that vein, this is the beauty of the Park Partnership Program, I think, is that there's an opportunity for a change to happen in a park, and it's for the betterment and improvement of that facility and benefits the users. So I agree. I think this would be a nice addition at W. Johnson. So, are there any further comments regarding the Richland Horse Park? Okay, seeing none. Oh, go ahead, Vice Chair.
I was going to make a motion. If that's, were you ready to call for a motion, or did you?
I was going to let us complete our discussion
okay,
first
I'm sorry.
before we get to.
I thought that we were done. Sorry.
That's okay. In terms of discussing all three applications first. So from there, let's move to the Friends of Badger Mountain discussion. Comments or Commissioner Bilt?
So I think this is an admirable application, as I do the horse park and as well as the Montessori. But I would think that if we were to make a motion on here, it would be on the condition that the program guideline issue is resolved.
I guess I would say in the past when we've done park partnership applications, we're able to state things like that in our motion. So if we are comfortable with a particular plan or application, it's usually with the understanding or with the comment added that, if it meets these terms. And we've had to occasionally pull back from an approval of a partnership for the sake of, it didn't meet a certain requirement. So I definitely think that would be possible. Yes.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to observe that the program for the last 2 or maybe 3 years has been undersubscribed. Mm-hmm. And I would submit that maybe we're making it a little too hard on people and on applicants. And therefore, that's why I'm trying to push for these conditional considerations of motions, mm-hmm. so that we can provide specific guidelines in the motion on how the applicant should proceed successfully.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner White.
I agree that I would like to see the program utilized more, but at the same time, I believe the comment was made by Commissioner Bilt. I'm trying to recall exactly how it was stated, that for the life of me, it's gone. I apologize. It's not coming back. Yeah, no, it's.
Just Commissioner Bilt, did you have another comment? Okay, sorry. Vice Chair Dorn.
I guess I would still like to come back to making a motion to forward just the horse group forward to council for approval. We've had a request from staff that indicated the others were not ready to go forward yet. And so I guess I don't see why we would try to do a vote on something we've been asked not to vote on yet for a number of reasons. People can take what they will from our comments tonight and understand that we have concerns, but sending it to council now when we were asked not to seems to me to be not a good idea.
Commissioner White.
I did remember my comment. You brought up whether or not there was precedent for this type of transaction, and so I just would like to get before I would feel more comfortable moving on as an advisory commission to make sure that we have clarification on if that precedent is, I guess for lack of a better word on the top of my head, something that we can address.
Address that maybe. As I recall, the precedent statement, it was, I think, regarding the remarkability of a high-value land donation. And I think celebrating that is the way.
If we're going to proceed down that road, as Vice Chair Dorn has recommended, that we not, and I see your point, not bringing it to council unless it's final. I would like to see us move forward with this program in earnest, and I'll be. My perception is we kind of let things drag on, and I would like to see this on the agenda for next time if we're serious about this, and not just kicking the can down the road. I don't want to see us kick that can down the road. Let's get these things yes or no. The applicants have some jobs to do to help us resolve that, but so do staff, right? So.
Commissioner, I'm so sorry.
So I would agree with going forward with the single motion for now, as long as we can get a commitment to get this resolved on agendas in near-term upcoming meetings.
Commissioner Andrews.
I just have two questions kind of for the City of Richland staff. So this park money, this $20,000, the line item out of the budget, does it have to be spent in year 2019? So if there was a condition placed on the land having to be turned over to the City of Richland until the funds were released, does this have to be, given to the organization this year, or can it be a carryover?
It's 2019 money, and carryovers in our organization do typically require some kind of commitment in order for them to be carried over. If we were under contract for the funds with the organization, I think that would meet that threshold.
And then the second question I have is, because essentially, if we can't figure out an amendment or some kind of special resolution with City Council on that, first requirement, this project's kind of sunk until they can turn over the land to the City of Richland. So is there a mechanism in place in which we can approve this proposal, either with some kind of contract that the property will be turned over at a certain time that can be approved by City Council?
I think that element could be included in our park partnership agreement that we would have in place.
Okay. I'd feel confident moving forward with something like that, as soon as it's in place, of course.
Okay. Okay. Do we have any other further comments about Friends of Badger? Okay. Sagebrush Montessori. Any comments? Vice Chair.
As I mentioned earlier, my concern here is that while I like the idea of what they're doing, and I like the proposal, there's too many uncertainties, there's too many unknowns given the lack of a master plan and other the question of moving the baseball field. How do we handle that? And those kinds of costs that are going to be part of this. It seems to me that we need to deal with it. We need to deal with that as part of a much larger question. So for now, I would have to say that one would be on hold for me.
Okay. I would just like to say something briefly, and I think Commissioner Bilt stated it very well. I really don't want it to be tiresome or difficult to be a part of the Park Partnership Program. So part of that is just making this an efficient process. And tonight we did get a little bogged down, and we're not fully done yet. But thank you for your patience tonight with us. I think the heart of it is that commissioners really want to do a good job and be thorough and make sure that things are done correctly. So understanding the desire to get things moving, and the season is here to, break ground or move earth or whatever needs to be done. This is the prime season for that, and that was part of our past comments, is that we wanted to allow applicants time during the season when they would not be bogged down and they could get those things completed. So thank you again for your patience. You've heard from the commission. We've had very good presentations. Thank you for taking the time to come here and present this evening as well. So at this time, I would like to entertain a motion if anyone is ready or willing. Vice Chair.
I move that we forward a recommendation to Council to approve the partnership in W.E. Johnson with the exact group is the horse group, horse park focus group.
So we have a motion from Vice Chair Doran with a second from Commissioner Bilt. Any further discussion about that? Commissioner White.
Should we try to clarify the language of the motion?
What
more specific to the is it the Richland Horse Park, or should we?
I think as it's stated is sufficient because it's included in the application.
Okay.
Any further comments? Okay, all those in favor say aye.